Welcome to Ctrl Alt Delete with Lisa Duerre. I am here today with a question for you. You can always count on questions when you're talking to me. The question today, what is a leadership belief that you've held to be so true that now no longer serves you? And that's going to be the baseline for our conversation today. I mean, I really want to land that. What's a leadership belief you've held true for so long and no longer serves you? And our guest today, Laurie Battaglia. I can't wait for you to answer that question.
Okay, well, let's see if I can make up a really good answer here.
I know, right? No pressure. Let's jump right in, my friend.
Exactly. I think the biggest thing is that as I moved into doing diversity and inclusion work, I thought I was a pretty inclusive leader. And I continue to learn something new, like literally each and every day, because it's such a dynamic field, which I think is one of the things that draws me toward it. I like change. I like dynamic things that there's not just one right answer. And I think for me, it was getting out of my own way and saying, ooh, I've said some of those things. I've done some of those things that now that, they say, now that you know better, do better. It continues to morph and change. And what was accepted today and yesterday may not be accepted tomorrow. So I like that dynamic nature.
I mean, okay. So this is what, the invitation, lean on in, everybody, grab your coffee, your tea, your water, your notepad. Laurie, that question, your answer is one I would say myself too. I've been on my own journey of just unlearning and thinking like, oh, I know what that means. I tell the story all the time about how I thought I was such an inclusive champion of women at work. Right. And then I realized, oh, that was through the lens of a white woman in tech.
Yeah.
And it meant to, then when I started really being more curious, like how much I didn't know and what I was told there was this phrase, nice, but clueless. Right. Yeah. So the other question is, where are you nice, but clueless? And how might we help you today? Right. But your answer to this question, which is why I'll get into your bio in just a second. But the whole conversation we're going to have today is really, it's not just questioning, but I think it's really about being curious with a kind heart about leadership beliefs that you're holding. Anyone listening, anyone watching, the leadership belief you're holding that may not be serving you anymore because the world is different now. It is different, right? So I'm going to give you a formal intro and then I want to get right in. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Right. Laurie Battaglia is CEO of Aligned at Work in Scottsdale, Arizona. That is a leadership consulting firm that's created signature programs focused on building and leading inclusive cultures at work and successful work-life integration. I'm going to pause because we're also going to be talking about burnout today, right? So I want to make really clear the intersection is on inclusion and burnout, right? That's today. Laurie spent her 35 plus year corporate career in companies large and small, and she's on a personal mission to wake up leaders of organizations who think they can delay inevitable change. Spoiler alert, you cannot delay inevitable change. Laurie's going to tell us how today. And Laurie describes herself as a futurist, a strategizer, a connector of people and resources who understands how to lead inclusively so that all people are valued and thrive. And Laurie, welcome to Ctrl Alt Delete. I'm just so happy to have you here today.
I am thrilled to be here. I was so happy when you reached out after a LinkedIn Live, and I was like, yes, I want to be on there. Yes.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. So I've been stalking Laurie for a while. Her LinkedIn Lives are like no other. And I've just been really, really inspired, Laurie, by the work that you do and how you show up. And there's something about, I think for everybody listening, I want to make sure that we're not here today to make you wrong. One of the things that I love about Laurie so much is she can talk about really hard topics and make sure that you feel safe and supported in the process, right? So this isn't an episode where you're going to be like, wow, I just got my ass chewed. No, right? No, we're going to basically talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, and burnout. And we're going to show you where all of those intersect and how you as a leader, whether you're the CEO, a board member, frontline manager, honestly, individual contributor, someone looking to go back into leadership right now, what you can do today, not only to help yourself and fill your tank, but to fill the tank of those that you lead and love. Sound good, Laurie?
Sounds great. Let's do it.
Love it. Okay. So here's the first question then. Awesome leadership. What's it look like and feel like? How do you define that at Aligned at Work? And how does that resonate for you on a personal level?
A few years back, I was at a conference and I heard Pat Waters from, at that time, LinkedIn's CHRO. Now she's going on to other places, but she was the first one I think I remember hearing talk about belonging. And
Mm,
I thought, oh, there's a new word, because I'm always like, what's coming? What's next? What's out there? And I spotted it. And then I made friends with Rhodes Perry, who has some books on belonging, Belonging at Work and Imagine Belonging, and does a belonging summit coming up. I think great leadership creates cultures where people do feel like they belong. Because when we do, we don't recognize it necessarily. We don't sit and think consciously, like, I belong here, like maybe on a good day. But when you feel like you don't belong, you immediately know it. It feels like there's some kind of list and you're not on it.
hmm
And that was a little further into my career till that happened to me. And I was used to being on the belonging list that I didn't really know was there. I don't know that it was an actual list, but I felt like I had sponsorship. I felt like I had backup and support for the most part, most places. And then I got to a place where I thought the sky was the limit, and it was not for me.
hmm
I stayed there a long time, but I did not feel like I ever had, other than like small bits of time and certain people, that somebody had my back as far as like that could actually influence my career. So I think that great leadership feels like I can be myself at work. I can show up with my problems and my humanness, and possibly my burnout and all of those things and crazy stuff going on in my life. And I can perform and I feel like I belong there. And on the times when it's a really downtime for me, I get a little bit of grace until I'm on my feet again. Because each one of us has something going on in our life sooner or later that just throws us for a loop. And we didn't see it coming. And no matter how much we plan for it, what's that they say? You make plans, God laughs. So, or the universe, whatever you choose to call it.
hmm
But you can plan all you want, but the universe just laughs at you and says, "Oh, we'll see what you do
Right. Yeah.
now."
Oh my gosh. Especially those of, so belonging is a key word here. I want to say, I have so much to say with what you just said. So belonging, that you can be yourself, have the good days and the bad days, bring them to work, not like dump them at work, but have them be
Right.
present and
Yes.
have there be grace for what's going on. And I mean, if
Yes.
anything in the last couple of years, that, I mean, one of the words I would say is grace for sure. We talk
Yeah.
a lot about safety, being safe to be
Yes.
yourself, right? One of the things that you just said that really I think is so divine, and you and I have not talked about this, but let me just presence this. So Pat Waters um, worked with my mentor and coach. And the reason that I do this work today is because of the inspiration of my mentor and coach,
Oh
who
my
has passed
gosh.
on. Denise Briette was my mentor and coach for decades. And I just think it's so interesting that I've been watching you and inviting you here, and that you were inspired by Pat, and Pat was actually in direct connection with my coach. I just, there's something about
There's that connection, right? We talked
fine,
about
right? I mean, I don't know where
connected.
Kevin Bacon is in this mix, but I have to presence that, because I think one of the things that for belonging that I found in my career is that when we follow our intuition and our gut instinct, when we see something, there's a spark or an idea, or you heard a new word and you follow that, you have no idea what's going to happen, but you're also belonging to yourself in that moment because you're listening to your intuition. And I don't know
Mhm.
why, but I just felt I needed to presence that for somebody today needs to know to follow their intuition. That's what I
Yeah.
can say. Because that's what
Yeah.
I
And
do
I'm
different than
big on
you.
that. Big
That's
on that.
why I invited you.
We didn't talk about this ahead of time, but I'm a Reiki master.
Oh, shut up. I
So
did Reiki level 1,
there you go.
right? Okay, say more.
It's
Let's talk
it's been
about
a
this.
while. So I believe in in feeling the energy. I had convinced myself, because again, I'm 66 years old, so I am a full-on baby boomer, raised by World War II veterans, two older brothers, and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I always say one of these is not like the others.
Mm,
So I really convinced myself I wasn't an empath. I was like, oh yeah, people pick up other people's energy. You poor suckers. And turns out, but I had to have a friend who's a strong energy healer as well tell me how much I was carrying with me when she worked on me on the table, on a sound healing table. And I've taught it off and on over the years. Like I did it pretty steady for a while, and then I moved to Arizona where I thought I'd do more of it, and I turned out to do less of it. But I believe that energy comes in, and I've noticed it on my own team, on my own bench. I'm pulling people that have a strong spiritual background. Some are religious, some are not. I am not anymore, but I am spiritual. And if they recognize that connectedness and that energy and that intuition that people bring, those are my people.
Yeah, this is okay. This is what I'm saying. Okay. Had I not followed my gut to even presence that, we would not be having this conversation. So here's how I can land this for people. When I look at what the world needs in leaders today, if I was to define awesome leadership, one key characteristic is intuition, following your intuition. And our model at RLD Group is flexible, intuitive, resilient, mindful. Okay.
Yes.
So one of the things that I think we should presence right now, as we're talking about the intersection of diversity, belonging, inclusion, DEIB, and burnout. I believe burnout happens when you don't follow your intuition. I believe that there's an opportunity for all of us to listen to our hearts, our minds, our yearnings, our spidey sense, whatever you want to call it. You know, people are like, well, I knew it was bad, but I stayed a long time and thought it would get better. I'm like, yeah, you knew it was bad, right? And so like, there needs to be a timeline. Or, you know, I didn't really ever feel right about that leader. I always got like this funky feeling, right? But I didn't do anything about it. Or I just kept letting them lead, or whatever it is. Like when you said you didn't think you were an empath, here's the biggest thing that's so funny about how we've come together today. Myers-Briggs is an assessment we did for years inside organizations, and my T, which is thinking, was always high, and my F was always low. And I just thought that meant I didn't have the intuitive knack or the feelings. So I worked really, really hard to tap in more into feelings. And also there was the sensing, right? I'm kidding.
Yes. Yeah.
And
the intuition and sensing. Yes.
So I tried to balance those. Like I was like, I'm going to trick my own results. Right. So for anyone listening, you know, don't we all do that? We look for what we wish we had more of, and we try and build that in ourselves. But what I realized for me was, as a leader, I had just been blocking it because I was staying in my head so much, and I would get migraines, or I would, you know, have chronic fatigue, like muscle aches. I never knew what they meant. My body was screaming at me, but I was ignoring it. Like, oh, it's just stress. And I finally had to realize, oh, wait, my stress response is actually something intuitively happening that keeps getting blocked. And I went, oh my God, like talk about an awesome leader. If you have someone sitting there and going, I've had migraines for 3 days, you might say, hey, let's talk about what's going on. You know, like, anyway, I'm going to lob it back over to you, because I wasn't expecting this connection at this level, but I think we need to bring intuition into the conversation, because
really
belonging, you talked about belonging as a feeling.
Yeah.
You're not going to get a checklist of 72 ways to help someone feel help them belong. What we are going to do is presence what it feels like on ourselves for belonging, to inspire others to think about it, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. What do you have to say about that? There's your.
Well, I was also thinking that you and I had a brief conversation before we started out about how we use the same coach that does somatic coaching.
Yep.
Like, what does it feel like in the body? And I've been asking people that for a long time. When I do career coaching and somebody's like, I have this offer and this offer, and this one's a lot of money, but this one, and I'm like, where are you going to go? And they're like, well, this one's a lot of money. And I'm like, right. And this one's less, but where are you going to go? And they can't walk away from the extra money. So it's almost like combat pay. Yeah, you're going to get
extra. My God. Say it again. You got to say that again.
It is combat pay.
Combat pay.
Yes.
Holy shnikey. It's combat pay.
Yeah.
Dude.
It's like, pay me more because you're going to not every place that pays well is going to abuse you, but sometimes if it seems, my dad was, if it seems better, what did he used to say? The old thing that if it doesn't seem like it's true, it's probably not.
Yeah.
It seems too good to be true, it's probably not.
Yep.
There's no such thing as a free lunch. Yeah, he's a little bit of a skeptic, my dad. So, and my mom,
your dad had a lived experience, and that's what that may have been his leadership belief.
He did.
Right? I mean,
he absolutely did.
We all come with those. That's why we're talking about it today.
And my mom was like, everybody's good. You see the good in everybody. And I'm like, oh, have you met people? So,
right.
But anyway, it's a lot of times I ask people when they're looking at two different roles, sit with it. Now just calm yourself and breathe. And you're in job A that pays a whole lot of money. And I learned to say that you're a little ways into it. So you're not in that fear of the very first part of it. Mm-hmm. But maybe you're 6 months in and you kind of know where the bathrooms are or how to log on to Zoom or whatever. How do you feel? Now go to the other job, and this sort of takes time. And where do you feel it in your body? What's going on in your body? Mm-hmm. So for me, what I'm working on lately is stopping overbooking myself, and it causes me to breathe shallow and like not be able to catch a breath. Mm-hmm. So my coach is working on breathing room with me. And do I have enough breathing room built into my schedule, and how do I get that? And then if we sit with job 2, so we go back to the story, go back to job 2, sit with that one, a little less money, I can breathe. So what's my body trying to tell me about what was going on in those interviews and offer and all that versus this? And I also ask people, I too am a thinker, to get real about what the realities are when they look at jobs. What are the realities of how much you have to make to pay your bills and feel good? Because I don't believe in, like what's comfortable, what's going to make you happy so you can take your mind off that. Mm-hmm. Versus, well, I made this before, so I need to make 20% more than that if I'm going to move or whatever.
Yep.
Do you? And do you want to get out of that abusive situation and move on to something that allows you some breathing room?
Yeah, I think this circles right back to the question about beliefs, like what leadership belief, or perhaps what career belief are you holding on to, or what, whatever perspective, insert question that has to do with a belief. Because the thing that I'm thinking about right now is, as we read the news today, there's looming recessions and layoffs are already happening at startups. And, some of these, wild, wacky ways that startups are financing themselves these days, they're starting to fall apart, right? Mm-hmm. And I know in tech, there is a pervasive culture of always on, never good enough, we'll replace you tomorrow. Yep. So I always want to say to people, is that true? Does it need to be true? Is the belief, we got to do layoffs because we got to make our numbers? Like, is that really something that has to hold true 100%? Or could you invite yourself, just like you did, where does that feel in my body? What if we did reduction of hours? Or imagine we were to do job sharing, or, like all of the different ways.
So many ways.
Stuck in your amygdala in fear and flight.
Right.
And then think about, okay, I know I've always said the best way to manage budget is layoffs, but how might we manage budget without layoffs? Like, I think that's the invitation, especially right now.
Yep.
Right. And then where do you feel that in your body, so that you can actually honestly be aligned with your intuition? Here we go again.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think people know, they're like, oh, it's layoff day, I don't want to go to the office. Oh, like constrained and then the survivors feel like crap, and then you have lost productivity.
I've had to lay people off.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, it's awful.
Survivor guilt. Yeah,
it's awful. Yeah. So what you're saying, I think, is no matter where we are on the journey, whether we're deciding what feels better for a career, we're deciding what feels better for managing layoffs, and everything in between, the pull through that I'm hearing you say is that we need to listen to our bodies and see what it feels like. And we also have to give ourselves a chance to question our own beliefs.
Yes. And one of the things that I'm bringing into some of my talks and stuff, it's an idea at this point, and I've done a little bit of it, but I'm like, oh, I really got to sit down and make a list. I'm about breaking the rules. There's old rules in play that have not worked for most people. Like they've worked for some people. Okay, here we go. Predominantly white men, probably straight white men. But that does not make them the enemy. It's just that the system was built around that assumption.
Yeah.
So when the system is built that way, if I'm in it and I'm benefiting, I'm not going to feel it. But if I'm not benefiting from it, I know it right away. And I think to a large extent, I did that fight as the first woman to the first woman to the first woman to. That's why the hair is white, I'm pretty sure. Because I should have brick marks on my forehead from hitting the wall too. But boy, we need to really examine what we thought the rules were for the workforce, and you're naming a lot of them. If I want to manage the budget, I have to do layoffs. I have to do what the stockholders want. Okay, and then what else? Don't they just want to keep the company alive and their value up? Like, how about that? That's what they want. What are the 65,000 ways we could get there instead of just the old way all the time? But we default to these assumptive ways of how we've always led and how we've managed the balance sheet and what we did with supply chain and what companies and countries we dealt with. And it's a toss-up, man. There's no rules. I mean, I don't think there's a lot of rules left. I think everything's up for examination right now.
I totally agree. I feel like the opportunity, like they call it the Great Resignation. I'm calling it the Great Reboot, right?
And I call it the Great Pause.
I love it, right?
So both are good. Yes, all
because
that.
It's not like people are just reevaluating. And one of the things I'm seeing right now, and I think if we go back to a leadership belief you held that no longer serves or perhaps is worth revisiting, as well as belonging and burnout. So here's where I'm going to go. Everybody needs to be back in the office. I look at this and I say bullshit. I'm like, no, that belief no longer serves even your shareholders.
Right.
Because what you're saying is the old way we did it is still going to work, and it's not.
It's not.
Right.
And you're not going to attract people. You're going to lose people who are willing to go get it remote somewhere else or hybrid or whatever they want. I think more people, to me, the reason I call it the Great Pause, and here's a difference, Lisa, that I didn't used to see. So when I would have senior leaders come into classes and things when I taught leadership development in corporate, if ever there was anybody, they would look at this one thing that we did, and on there was like, if money were no object, what's your dream job? And they would invariably say, I'm in it. And I knew what the people thought about their jobs in the class. And I was like, so, I'm in my dream job. Well, that's great for you. Like, and I'm not saying that in the class. Like, isn't that wonderful? Something to strive for. But honestly, I don't know. It's just like even the senior people these days are the ones who have been around and tracking upwards are going, is this what I really want? And where do I want to live? And what kind of life do I want to have with my family or my friends, whichever it is, the chosen family or the family of origin or whatever it is. The people that are important to me, how much time can I get with them? Because I was worried that I could have gotten really sick or I could have died or someone close to me did. And that causes the great reckoning that I think used to come when somebody would, like, my husband had a triple bypass here. We got married 20 years ago. That's a great reckoning where everything he did since then is different than what he used to do before that, because it was the wake up call. And I think that's what it is. It's a giant wake up call. And we have to pay attention because it's not going away. And remote work is not going away. Hybrid work, not going away.
And I think for the listener here who's like, no, they need to be back here. This is the way it is. Lisa and Laurie are nuts. That's cool. My invitation is stay in the conversation because I'm going to tell you why. It goes back to belonging and burnout. So one of the things that I've noticed, and I'm seeing it a lot, I have my own burnout experience. I talk about it regularly because I want to normalize that burnout doesn't mean you suck or you're broken. For me, I didn't feel that I belonged to myself. I felt that I belonged to the company. And that mindset is what I believe led me to burnout, because I felt like no matter what, I shouldn't take time, or I couldn't do this, or there was a lot of like power giving away.
Yes.
Right. And then not questioning rules or
Yes.
advocating for myself. I believe that was fundamentally, I didn't belong to myself, and I didn't think that I mattered, right, outside of work. So work was the thing for me that was like, look at you, senior executive in tech, female leader, blah, 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 right? And
Mhm.
yet I had a child at home who I had 6 years of infertility and was like, I want to be with her. I want to
Yeah.
be her mom,
Yeah.
right? I was really, really lost and did not try and advocate for myself. And I think when we look at belonging in the conversation today, I think the invitation for everybody is just to know that everybody has something outside of work, and if they're not talking about it, doesn't mean it's not there.
Right.
And so as a leader, if you're coming down black and white on, we must return to the office, this is the way it is, I think that is a lack of belonging.
I think so too.
Yeah. What do you
I
want to say
think
about that?
I think it's also, the higher we go, the more invariably we will lose touch with what it's like to be coming into the organization. Or if we think about the pyramid, we're at the bottom of the pyramid, and there's a few people here and a lot of people here. The higher you get, the more people guard the information that they give to you. So even if you're out there trying to stir the pot and stay connected, you're not. Get ready. So the higher you go, the less connected you get with the reality of people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's that way with burnout too. And I also, here's something I'll bring up. For me, I've been in a state of burnout probably since December of last year. And I'm slogging through. And what I did to try to get out of it was something I used to do when I was a lot younger, which was work my way out of it. So even though and all of it is like, that's not how you do it. Your response, I think, under that situation is just to go back to what you just default to it.
Yeah.
It's sort of like if you grew up in abuse or whatever, addiction or whatever, sometimes you just go there without any conscious thought about it. Mm-hmm. So I unconsciously went back to keeping my schedule very, very booked full, which then just fuels the burnout even more. Mm-hmm. And I am just about to the point where I can work my way out of it, meaning that I can see light at the end of the tunnel in a couple of weeks. Mm-hmm. That I will have some breathing room in my calendar and I can make different choices going forward. But I felt that I had created some healthier patterns during COVID. Some people, first I ate a lot, then I went on Noom and I lost weight, and I ate healthy and I tracked things and I did my floor exercises. I did what I knew I needed to do. And then what happened was, and here's the stigma around it, when one achieves a certain level of success and has a nice house, and I live in a great neighborhood, nice family neighborhood, and I've got a great company, and I've got people surrounding me that love me, and I hit burnout, I hit the wall. Mm-hmm. And what fueled it was the last minute shutdown of Europe. So I've been to Europe 2 times. I feel like I have to say this. I've only been to Europe twice. It's not like I'm a jet setter. I feel like I have to give that caveat.
Yeah.
And this was going to be my 3rd time, and it had gotten rescheduled over and over again because of COVID. Mm-hmm. And we were set to go, and within the last 10 days, Austria shut down, and we elected not to go on that trip and to reschedule it into 2023. Mm-hmm. So it'll be 3 years after it was originally supposed to happen. And who knows what can happen between now and then. But that lack of change of scenery, I was counting on that to make me put down my phone.
Yeah. Yep.
To make me get off of Facebook, to make me want to look around me and say, oh my goodness, and disconnect, because I am so addicted to my phone and the work and always on, my emails, and clearing makes me happy to delete. So
right. Yeah. You were going to Ctrl Alt Delete in Europe.
Yeah.
Reboot in Europe. Yep.
I was going to reboot in Europe.
And then all of a sudden it was like, oh, that's not happening. And then you're like, well, shit, how am I going to reboot now? Is that what we're saying? Mm-hmm.
Exactly that.
Yep.
And I know I need a physical change of scenery
Yeah.
to do that. And preferably some pretty shitty Wi-Fi and cell coverage is
right.
helpful
Yeah.
as well.
To keep you.
or something I'm going to have to pay a lot more money.
Well, I'm honestly right. You pay for it now, or you pay for it later. But okay, so I'm going to double click here. Okay.
Yeah.
So first of all, thank you for being so bold and brave in this conversation to say, hey, I had this a healthier way of doing it. I lost myself in it and I knew it was happening, but I saw that there was a way out at this angle, right? So going back to what's the belief I held? Well, I can stop my burnout if I go to Europe.
Right.
Now you're faced with, holy crap, that's not happening. And I'm stuck here in burnout. And so I think what would be useful for people, could you describe your experience of burnout? In other words, thoughts, feelings, behaviors. I heard a couple, connected to my phone. I need crappy Wi-Fi, so I can't get onto it. I'm going to say the status of busy, meaning thriving business. I'm so busy.
I'm so busy.
Right. So there's like busyness, and then there's like tech addiction. I'm going to use my words. I'm not labeling you.
Yes, it is. It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can you give a little bit more? Because I think sometimes people think they're burnt out and they're either stressed out or overwhelmed. And it's because burnout is like, I need a reboot, and stressed out and overwhelmed is I can do things right now.
Yeah. I found that I can't focus. So I can't stay focused on things that need that focused work kind of thing. So I fill my calendar up with quick hits. So it might be, I found that I was booking more speaking gigs and training because then I'm around humans, and I really missed that of COVID. I mean, yes, we're on Zoom and all that kind of stuff, but I missed the in-person stuff. So I started traveling just like a crazy woman.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing was, I know that my body is such that if I don't level out my hips and get this loosened up, I'm going to be in some pain. And I know I need to do that, but I'm too busy to do that. I'm just too busy.
So you're talking about your shoulders and your hips, that if you don't, when you say level them out, are you talking about stretching?
My hips, I have a slight scoliosis. So if I looked at myself in the mirror, one hip is higher and forward versus the other one, and I have exercises that I do with a coach that causes my hips to level out, like get down more even. And if I'm laying on the yoga mat, I can actually feel that one is forward and up, and she can see it. And so we try to get that done, because then that stiffens this up. But I sit at this computer all day long. I have a great setup here. And I find that the other thing with burnout is I want to get off the computer, but I stay on it because I can't get the stuff done. So I just keep trying to plug away.
Amen.
But,
right? Yes.
And I would tell anybody else not to do that. Walk away. Go get.
Yeah. No, you can't. Of course, you'll tell anybody else, but when you're in it, it's hard to even like hear your own advice. So, okay, here's what I'm hearing. I'm hearing your body's telling you by stiffness or cramps or aches that your ability to get things done is taking a lot longer, and it's a lot more draining. And that even though your mind and your heart are like, stop, you don't stop. Is that right? Okay. Right. So anyone listening in is going, holy shit, that's me too. I guarantee you. Right. Here's the thing that I'll say too, for me, I had a lot of cynicism. So it was like, everybody sucks and that's all awful.
Yes.
And believe me, I have to like turn the TV off, because if I get it all engaged in any sort of political something where there's drama,
I gotta
all
get
of
away
the,
from that.
locusts and shootings and monkeypox, forget about it. Right. So there's like a cynical mindset that goes with it for me. I also really noticed I was weepy and pissed off all the time. So I never felt like in the middle.
Yeah.
Like there was
weepy and pissed off is good.
Yeah. I didn't have
tired but not sleepy.
Yeah, fatigue, right?
Yeah, fatigue that you couldn't sleep away or couldn't stay asleep.
And also memory. My memory was shot.
Yes.
Yeah. So I once remember calling my husband from the parking lot. So back then, when my burnout was at its worst, I couldn't find my car. So I'd call my husband and be like, babe, I can't find the car. Can you do that thing on the phone where you find it for me? Because I wanted to pick up my daughter from preschool at the time. and a colleague drove by and was like, "Are you okay?" "Oh, I'm fine." And
Yeah,
then
I'm fine.
they
I'm
drove
good.
by again. And I'm like, "I'm still fine," as I'm walking up and down trying to find my car. Like the simplest things of not finding your car.
Yeah,
The reason I want to bring this up is that I think sometimes we label things as burnout. And then we're holding this belief like I should be able to get it all done, or this must work this way. And I also found I got really controlling and like
yes.
tight.
Yeah,
Same for you?
tight. And I tend to sit with my arms crossed, and then you really can't get a good breath. And
Mm-hmm.
oh my gosh, it's just that you go back into old patterns that didn't work for you, that you
Yes.
thought you had abandoned
Mm-hmm.
because you're just not in this space where you can see clearly.
Yeah.
And you know it, and yet you feel
Yes.
helpless to fix
There's
it.
a very big feeling of helplessness and brokenness, right? And that then circles into shame, and that's isolation, and that's lack of belonging, right? Like
And
I
and
don't
then the
feel like I
story
belong.
of, oh, first world problems, Laurie, like, get over it.
Yeah.
That, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah. I know
yeah,
first world
get
problems,
over
you
it.
can't find your car with your automatic tile and
Right,
your
what's wrong
push
with you?
button, whatever, right? Yeah, I know,
Yeah,
seriously. So here's what I think is important for us to presence is that you and I just shared our own experience of it. So for the listener now going, "Holy crap, that's me too." And knowing, and they can't go to Europe and you can't either, right? What are you doing right now? What could help inspire anyone listening? Something that is working for you to reboot your energy, your mindset, your physicalness, your
yeah.
physicality. What are you doing to help yourself knowing that your great reboot that you were planning on is not happening?
Since I default to running my business or doing busy work, as opposed to, cleaning a house or something like that, I'm not one of those,
Mm-hmm.
other than post-divorce 25 years ago, but that was a whole other time. So what I find works for me is I go over to, we have a place called Wildflower Bread Company, and it's one of those places where you get sandwiches and salads and things like that, and you can get an iced tea or a hot tea or whatever and sit down, and they'll take very good care of you. And they don't mind if you set up your computer, they've got the plugs right there and all that kind of stuff. So just getting away and going someplace like that for a couple hours and getting out of the house is one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Taking a walk. Now, I'm not a big walk around the neighborhood kind of a person. And right now we're getting up to about 106, 112 here
Yeah,
in the Phoenix area. So
I'm not walking in that, my friend.
no, I don't like getting hot and sweaty. So something physical, even just to get up and walk around. And sometimes I take a nap. It's crazy. But
Mhm.
sometimes I take a nap, and the cats really appreciate that.
Yeah.
And it's a quick one, but because if I sleep too long, that makes the restlessness at night worse. But for me, it's a change of scenery. I also, when the price of gas isn't 5, 6, whatever dollars a gallon, I do love a look good drive.
I love it.
So
Drive.
yeah,
Yeah.
we did that during COVID. We would figure out how far we could go and get back in one day. And we would just go, and Wildflower has places in Sedona and places in
Mhm.
Flagstaff. So we would drive, order on the app, eat outside, and then, wipe
Yeah.
everything down and then come home again.
Yeah. That's
And it
brilliant.
was just a different change of scenery. And if I'm driving, I can't be texting, and I can't be,
Exactly.
my
Yeah.
phone's down.
Yeah. I love this so much. So I think one of the things I'd love to presence as we're thinking about this is um everything you just said made sense to me. So it was like, get out of your environment, do something so your technology isn't the number one thing. And then also I heard nutrition and then
Yes.
nature, right? Because I know the drive to Sedona. I got
Yes.
married in Sedona. Believe me, that
Oh, there you
drive
go.
would calm me down any day. So one thing I'm thinking about for me, that's I'll add to the conversation, and then I want to switch it to our DE&I leaders who I know are burnt out,
Yeah.
right? And so what I want to say is that for me, once I started talking about it, so I went to therapy. That helped. Once
It
I
does.
started admitting it to my family and I had to figure out how to ask for help. Like
Yes.
I believed that naps were huge for me, but I never thought it was okay to take a nap because I should be busy.
Right.
So if I'm lazy for taking a nap, but once I realized
Right.
napping is rebooting my nervous system, so it's always back to I keep going, what operating system upgrade do I need?
Yeah.
So asking for help, talking to people, getting my therapist really helped. I also got a somatic coach. So I
Mhm.
worked through my body and I did some shaking and some movement and some tapping. And I think when we talk about it, it automatically creates more inclusion and belonging for others who are feeling alone in it. Because I felt really, really alone, much like I did when I had infertility battles.
Yeah,
We don't talk about it. So
right.
once I started talking about it, I realized, oh my God, you feel that too? You too? And so
Yeah.
it really became an opportunity for belonging, not like you're in the club, you're in the burnout club, but you're in the human club.
You
We
are in
all
the human
have
club.
moments, right? So when I think about leaders today who are working on belonging and they're working on inclusion, and they're tasked with this at their level, whether it's a DEI specialist, department, group, one person, doesn't matter. I stand firm that that is not just one person's job.
Mhm.
I stand firm that it's the system, it's the leader,
Yes,
it's the culture. And I
yes.
know I read an article even today in Inc. magazine, that the head of diversity roles grew 107% in the past 6 years. And they have 2 fewer years of average tenure compared to other execs. Like they go in, they're hopeful, and then
Yep,
that's it. It's not working. Peace out.
yep.
Right. So we go back to that feeling too. What job should I take? Am I fueled by passion or money? And
Yeah.
Laurie, I know you live in this space every day, and I'd love to presence some insights, some thoughts for all leaders, because belonging, I think, is one of the antidotes to burnout. And
I
I
think
don't
it
think it's one
is.
person's job.
Yeah, I think
So
it
I'd love
is.
your thoughts.
Um, I agree with you on everything you said there. I think that, golly, I had a thought there and see, it just went out of my head.
Yeah, it
Um,
happened to me too, for sure.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Oh, that there's a couple of communities that I'm a member of where you can go as a DEI person, be yourself, let your guard down, meet other people like you and say, this is hard work. And somebody that you and I know, Dr. Nicholas Harvey, has
yeah.
something with a business partner called Strength for the Struggle. And it's once a month. I haven't been able to make it because I've overbooked myself. I haven't been able to make it for a few months, but I'll get back to it in the next couple. And it's just an hour of, there's like a little presentation, then they put us in breakout rooms and we just talk to one another, and then we come back in, and then they hang on in case somebody wants some one-on-one time with them or just wants to ask a question in a larger circle. That and again, I'll mention Rhodes Perry. He's got a belonging community where people go, and he talks a lot about you have to do the self-care if you're going to do DEI, because it's a marathon. It will not be done tomorrow, the next day. It will not be done in my lifetime. So we have to sort of plant the seeds of the tree that's going to sprout for my great grandchildren.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, it's because my granddaughters are already 19 and 16, so they're seeing the world for what it is. My grandsons are 4, 2, and 1, so maybe in their time, but yeah, we got a lot of work to do. And it is not going to get done overnight. It's not going to get done by one person. It takes a collective consciousness to come together and be all working on it. So we got to be there for one another. Find a community or at least one other person that does what you do that you can talk to as a sanity check. So that you like, yeah, I'm burned out too. What are we going to do about this? Well, like, and I, you know, as a coach in a perfect world, excuse me, I would be saying, well, do something today, like just one tiny thing. But sometimes you just can't get to it. Sometimes you just can't bring yourself to do that one thing today. So find time on your calendar when you are going to allow yourself. For me, it's Friday, when I've got some time that I can, and I may just jump offline and not do a darn thing and take care of myself. And that's probably the best thing I can do.
You know, that's so interesting, because one of the things I'm thinking about, and I know I said DEI leaders, right? And I really want to call that out because I think it's a very lonely job. And I think that honestly, leadership is lonely. So we could label HR leaders, we could label product leaders, sales leaders, right? I'm just using this one because I know this is the world you're in. One of the things I think that's so important is to just what we'll call tend and befriend each other. Right. And just check in on each other. I mean, if you're not the DEI leader at your company, my invitation for you is to go make a phone call to
Yeah.
that, be like, how might I support you? What are you proud of? What's working? What can we
Yes.
do to help? Right? Here's some ideas I have. Because the thing is, I don't think we're going to be at a belonging state, right? 3 months from now. As you said,
No.
it's generational, it's systemic. And I think each leader just showing care, compassion, and curiosity for the people in charge of that effort can go a tremendous way. And
You
then
really can.
the other thing I'll say real quick is that you mentioned your grandkids. I mean, my daughter's teaching me every day about what it means to be included and belong, right?
Right?
So look to the kids. Right?
Yeah.
What does Mr. Rogers say? Look to the helpers. I'm like, look to the kids.
Yeah.
They know.
Yeah. I keep
You
hearing
know.
the song, I believe the children are our future. It's like
Oh my
they,
gosh, right?
they've got it right for the most part,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. Speaking of songs, because that's one thing I always like to add. So I ask for songs for two reasons. Number one, I love music. I'll just be honest. But number two, here's what I know. When you're burnt out, stressed out, overwhelmed, even questioning, okay, they told me to question my belief. What is it? Sometimes a song can help you access parts of yourself that is not just in your brain. So it connects your heart, your soul, your energy. So we have a playlist, and I'd love to put a song from you on there so that when the listener hears Laurie's song, they're like, oh, yeah, that's what they talked about.
yeah.
What we've talked about today, what song comes to mind?
Well, you know, the most obvious one is Pharrell Williams' Happy,
Mm
because I do love it. I can't sit still when that comes on.
hmm. Mm hmm.
Um,
Because I'm happy, jump along.
yeah,
If you
yeah.
room with
And then Uptown Funk is another one I can't sit still
dude.
for.
Yep.
And then there's one by Justin Timberlake, and the name is escaping me, but I can see him dancing on an award show to it, and I love his video of it. It's all around LA, and I can't think of the name of it.
Oh my gosh, I want to
Oh
think of it now
gosh,
too.
I should have Googled
It's
it.
gonna come to me. Oh no, we're gonna do
Yeah,
it because we don't want to leave anybody hanging.
yeah.
Okay, so tell me about Uptown Funk while I look up Justin Timberlake. Why
So let's
Uptown
see.
Funk?
Uptown Funk, just I've seen the dancing to it. It makes me want to get out of my seat and dance.
Oh, right. The
Yeah,
video of Uptown
yeah.
Funk is like, now I actually saw Bruno Mars in concert. Okay, here's a little tip on Lisa. We bought really cheap tickets the last day before he got really famous. So I was like behind the stage and I could look through from the back. So I got to see the back of Bruno Mars the whole time. But that show was phenomenal. Like
Yeah.
the level of energy and dancing with that song specifically, that can help you. Okay, what's next? What could happen? What is possible, right?
Yes.
Yes, I love that.
Yes.
Okay, I'm
Yeah.
gonna look up. We're gonna add the Justin Timberlake song list because I don't know. He can't stop the feeling.
That's it.
Yep, got
That's
it.
it. Thank you. Yeah.
You dance. Okay, we're putting 3 songs in, Laurie.
Awesome.
How about that?
It's like a dance party kind of a thing. And then, you know, if you had more time, I could go back to the 70s and tell you about those songs. But
Oh, dude. Okay, well, we're just gonna have to do part 2. Okay, let me ask you this. So I want to summarize for a second. So we started with a leadership belief that no longer served you, and yours was that I don't know everything. I'm paraphrasing. I'm being completely paraphrasing. But like, hey, I'm a learner. As a leader, my job is to learn, not to know everything. How about that? Then we talked about what does awesome leadership feel like, and we talked about belonging. Then we went into the burnout route. And we talked about our own experiences of burnout. I mean, we've covered a lot of things, and we're also helping the listener right now go, okay, what part of me is there? What isn't? And what stories am I telling myself? What's true? We've got some songs to lift your spirits. If you can't get away from your tech, you can do a dance party.
right.
But Laurie, when you think about it, what's the call to action here? What's your double dog dare for our listener? What can they do, say, feel in order to really have this download into their operating system, this conversation today?
I think as I think about that, what's coming up for me is that whole listen to your body.
Ooh.
Just listen to your body. And that, to me, listening to the body and the intuition is almost one and the same. Like the body will live out whatever else is trying to come out for you. So if you really start to get in touch, and it takes a while and a lot of practice because we're trained to stay in our heads, as you and I talked about, get down in. And it wasn't something I could do without a couple of different coaches. I've got my movement coach, and then I've got my somatic coach that's working on mindset and body and all of that kind of stuff. So find somebody that can help you just get in touch with your body. If you don't have the money to hire a coach, sit quietly and really listen. Pull away from people. Sit in your car if you have to. Pull over in a parking lot and just relax, breathe, put the seat back and relax and breathe and start to be able to get deep breaths in instead of just the shallow breathing. When I started this work, I started realizing that when I drove, I would be all up in here if I was at all. So I was just sort of shallow breathing and really up here in my throat and chest instead of down in here. And that's why I couldn't even get started with connecting to my whole body. And the top was cut off from the bottom, and just all kinds of stuff I learned from working with a good coach that could physically and intuitively read what was going on. And I am a big believer in therapy too. A big believer in therapy. Makes all the difference. I'm probably due for another round soon.
Yeah, it's so we always do what we, the advice we give is the advice we need, right? So even when you were talking about breathing, I'm going to presence this for people. You had your hands on your neck and you were talking about things, and I could feel myself trying to breathe deeper. One of the things for breathing, so I think the double dog dare is breathe and check in with your body and then do something for yourself, right?
Yeah.
Because one of the things I know, I work on my lymphatic system a lot. And our stomach, our deep abdominal breathing actually helps your whole lymph system. So if you're feeling puffy or tired or fatigued, you might have sluggish lymph. I mean, I'm not here to diagnose you, but I know my own experience. And when I do that abdominal breathing, I instantly feel more energized. It is.
And I tap too when I'm on the floor. I do a lot of tapping and tapping across it. Yeah. All kinds of tapping as well. That really works for me.
Okay. So the double dog dare is check in with your body and do deep breathing. Whatever that breathing is for you, like pay attention to your breath, right? And what's the payoff if they take the double dog dare, Laurie? What do you know will be, why will this help them?
You'll start to really uncover what's going on for yourself. Now that can be scary. Sometimes it can be safer to stay in your mind, not necessarily, but sometimes it can be safer to just let things go as they are. Because when we start to shift and change, everybody around us feels that it's like a rubber band, and if you pull here, it'll go here. So there's a lot of renegotiating. Sometimes it has to go on when you start taking care of yourself. But there's a major payoff in quality of life when you can get to it. And then I'll just say, as a 66-year-old, you have to keep returning to it. It doesn't just automatically stay there without conscious thought and work. When you start to veer off the path, like, oh, there I go again, what's going on? And then uncovering what's going on underneath it.
Yeah, I really appreciate you presencing that, because this is one of the reasons I really have followed you for a long time, is you don't give like quick little things and the world's all better. You're like, this is your next step, and here's the shit that's going to follow. And here's the
it's work.
So it's like, do the breathing and then be prepared. People might be like, what's up? Then you're going to be like, here's what's up. And then you're going to build those relationships and the new way of being for yourself, which was, that's true for me too. And I really appreciate you saying that. And I think if I were to add to I'm going to make a triple dog dare on this one. I really do want to invite people to listen to that playlist. I think that when you're listening to those songs, you'll remember this a little bit more and you can give yourself that break. So on a drive, on a walk, I think there's something magical in there. And if I could, what I'd love to do is close with appreciation here, Laurie. One of the things that I love when you say as a 66-year-old woman, like, I'm just like, listen, we said, listen to the kids, but I also want to say, listen to each one of us at every evolution on our journey. And I'm so grateful that at 66, you're continuing to learn and unlearn and share that with the world. It's inspiring. And that, when you think about the work that Aligned at Work is doing and what you're doing with your teams to really make this a world where people feel that they're safe, included, they belong, so that they can make the impact they want to make at work and in their lives. It's an honor to have you here today. I'm really grateful for your time.
It is truly an honor to be asked. I was so looking forward to this, and it's been such fun.
Oh, thank you. Well, listen, listener, I'm talking to you now. I'd love it if you'd like and you'd share this episode, subscribe to our podcast, right? Take a listen. We have so many wonderful resources right here for you, like Laurie, and we'd love to hear your favorite episode. So like and share, know that we're here for you. And until next time, your double dog dare, take 3 deep breaths, scan into your body, and take good care of yourself. Thanks, everybody. Make it a great day. Thank you, Laurie.
Thank you.